Pope Francis, leader of the Roman Catholic Church, passed away Monday morning at his residence in the Vatican's Casa Santa Marta. He was 88 years old. News of the Pope's passing. News of the Pope's passing came unexpectedly as he was present at Easter celebrations over the weekend. Just one day before his death, Pope Francis dedicated his Easter message and blessing Urbi et Orbi to world peace, global disarmament, and the release of prisoners in Gaza. However, Francis's health was evidently in severe decline. He was hospitalized for 5 weeks from the 14th of February for double pneumonia, but became the most serious health crisis of his 12-year papacy. According to Vatican News, in 1957, in his early 20s, Jorge Mario Bergoglio underwent surgery in his native Argentina to remove a portion of his lung that had been affected by a severe respiratory infection.
And he was the first pope from outside Europe since the 8th century. At the time of his election, he drew broad support.
Condolences have flooded in from European leaders regarding the passing of the leader of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis. This includes senior EU officials from Brussels. We are joined live now from the Belgian capital by our EU correspondent Angela Skujins. So Angela, can you briefly summarize what these leaders had to say following the tragic news from the Vatican?
Yes, so it's not just EU leaders that have offered their condolences. We're talking about European and global leaders that have flooded tributes to that 88-year-old leader that passed away at 7:35 this morning, according to the Vatican. So we first heard from European Council President Antonio Costa, who said that he would join roughly 1.4 million Catholics around the world mourning this loss. He described that leader as one that was moving towards peace. We also heard from European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. She shared a post on social media platform X of herself with Pope Francis, and she described him as one whose legacy will continue to guide the world throughout whatever comes its way. We also heard from the EU's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, who shared a post as well on social media saying that she recently met that leader in Rome, and she thanked him for his strong leadership in protecting the most vulnerable and defending human rights and dignity. But that's not all. We also heard from Germany's Chancellor-to-be, Friedrich Merz, as well as the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof described Pope Francis as a role model for Catholics and non-Catholics alike. We also heard from the Israeli President, Isaac Herzog, who hailed that leader for his boundless compassion. So just to summarise the facts we heard roughly at 10 a.m, that's when the news broke of Pope Francis's passing. He has held the papacy since 2013, the first Latin American leader to do so, very well known for trying to join the progressive and conservative quarters of the Catholic faith together. But we're expecting more condolences to roll in as this news is a developing one. But that's all from Brussels. I'll send it back to you in Warsaw.
Angela Skujins there, bringing us the latest on the reactions from European leaders following the death of Pope Francis. Angela, thank you very much for being here with us today. Now, with his passing, Pope Francis leaves behind a complex legacy. It is a legacy of ecumenical dialogue, for example. As Angela has mentioned just a moment ago, he was one to reach out to different faiths, for example, to the Muslims. In fact, back in 2016, he actually offered Syrian Muslims asylum in the Vatican. Another example of the Pope's progressive attitude was reaching out to the LGBTQ+ community. Here we have a quote from Pope Francis. "When God looks at a gay person, does he endorse the existence of this person with love or reject and condemn this person?" And he also added, "We must always consider this person." So in his papacy, the Pope was indeed trying to combine conservatism with more progressive ideas concerning the future of the Catholic Church. There has also been some criticism regarding his political stance, and this pertains in particular to the war in Ukraine. Now, of course, the Pope has always been about a message of peace, just like he did yesterday concerning the situation in Gaza, where he made a powerful appeal for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. Regarding Ukraine, however, apart from a message of peace, he would often make statements which Ukrainians in particular have criticized for possibly not emphasizing sufficiently Russia's role in the conflict. During an online meeting with a group of young Russian Catholics, for example, the Pope has made a controversial statement, and I quote, "You are the descendants of great Russia, the great Russia of saints, rulers, the great Russia of Peter I, Catherine II, that empire of educated culture and great humanity." Later on, the Pope has also made another statement that was not well received in Ukraine, saying that they need to have the courage of the white flag. Here is a quote: "I think that the strongest country is the one that looks at the situation, thinks about the people, and has the courage of the white flag and negotiates. When you see that you are defeated, that things are not going well, you have to have the courage to negotiate." So a very complex legacy of a Pope that was following traditions, that was trying to open up the Catholic Church to new and progressive movements within societies, to essentially ride the tides of change. But also a Pope that had a very different approach to European conflicts, for example, in politics, than Pope John Paul II, the Polish Pope, whom many Poles and Ukrainians remember for his unwavering stance against communism during his day. Now, also, what is important is that there is going to be a complex set of steps taken at the Vatican following the Pope's demise. It has been clearly delineated by tradition. It involves the role of the Camerlengo, currently Cardinal Kevin Farrell, who also has broken the tragic news of the Pope's passing. The tradition has the Camerlengo confirmed the Pope's demise, later on destroying the so-called Ring of the Fisherman, which is the individual personal seal of each individual Pope. Now, we're going to move on now to another story also related to our breaking news concerning Pope Francis. Pope Francis was the first Jesuit Pope and a champion of humility. He has passed away today at the age of 88, marking the end of an era at the Vatican. His death prompts reflection not only on his transformative papacy, but also on the legacy of his predecessors, each shaping the Church and its role in the world over centuries.
The world bids farewell to Pope Francis, a man who transformed the papacy through humility and openness. Let's look back at the long heritage he inherited and the extraordinary events that ushered in his own pontificate. The papacy traces its roots to Saint Peter, regarded by Catholics as the first pope. Over centuries, popes became not just spiritual leaders but also powerful rulers, once governing vast territories known as the Papal States. Their role gradually shifted from medieval monarchs to modern-day moral authorities, shaping Catholic doctrine and global politics alike. In recent history, Pope John Paul II, originally from Poland, reigned for nearly 3 decades. He championed human rights and played a key role in the collapse of communism in Eastern Europe. His successor, Benedict XVI, a respected theologian, stunned the world when he abdicated in 2013, becoming the first pope to resign in nearly 600 years. That decision paved the way for Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio of Argentina, soon known as Pope Francis. He became this 266th successor to St. Peter, bringing a more informal, hands-on style of leadership. He lived simply, emphasized mercy, and won admirers far beyond the Catholic Church. Typically, a new pontiff is chosen through a conclave, a centuries-old tradition. Cardinals from around the world gather in the Sistine Chapel, voting in secrecy until one candidate achieves the necessary majority. Once agreement is reached, white smoke rises from a chimney to signal Habemus Papam, Latin for "we have a pope." As the Church prepares to open a new chapter, it returns to this timeless ritual of selection. Pope Francis leaves behind a legacy defined by compassion and reform. one that may well guide his eventual successor in shaping the future of over 1 billion Catholics worldwide.
And with this, we conclude our news bulletin here on TVP World. Please stay with us for more latest news and updates.